There's a moment, and if you've been in this hobby long enough, you know exactly what it feels like, where you plug in a new headphone, and instead of hearing the music, you hear your amplifier. Not what it does well, what it doesn't. Every shortcut in your chain, every compromise. That's the D8000 DC Pro. That's the whole experience. And at $39.99, as of May 2026, check current pricing, you're either paying for the most honest transducer in the planar magnetic class, or you're paying $4 to find out your system has problems you didn't know about. Final Audio, Japanese company. The D8000 series has been around since 2018, but the DC Pro isn't a refresh. It's the version where they made two engineering bets that almost nobody else in this category is making. And those two bets change everything about how this headphone behaves at the bottom of the frequency range. Pick it up first, though. 523 grams. Aluminum alloy and stainless steel. This thing has presence in your hands before it has sound in your ears. The chassis is rigid, not decoratively rigid, structurally rigid. You feel it. The ear cups are wide, the headband distributes pressure well enough, and the lambskin pads seal without clamping your temples. It's heavy. Past an hour, you'll be shifting the headband, taking a break, readjusting. That's just what this weight class means. But when you're seated, focused, actually locked into a session, you stop noticing. This isn't background listening gear. It's a headphone you put on when you've decided it's time. The finish is restrained. No flashy materials, no exotic surface treatments designed to justify the price tag visually. It reads like a professional instrument, not a display piece. Dual 3.5mm connectors at the ear cups give you broad aftermarket cable access, which matters here. We'll come back to that. And it's open back, which means, and I can't stress this enough, quiet room or don't bother. Background noise doesn't just interfere with this headphone. It destroys the exact capability you paid $4,000 for. Those two engineering bets. First one, the air film damping system. Every planar magnetic headphone deals with the same problem. The diaphragm resonates. It's a thin membrane being driven by magnets across a wide frequency range, and at certain points, especially up high, it rings. The industry has three ways of dealing with this. Stuff foam in the ear cup, add passive filters, or just accept it and tune around it. Final Audio said no to all three. What they did instead, they placed a thin film at a very precisely controlled distance from the diaphragm surface. When the driver moves, the air trapped between that film and the diaphragm creates viscous resistance. The faster the diaphragm moves, the more resistance it meets. High-frequency resonance, fast, small motion, gets suppressed aggressively. Low-frequency excursion passes through mostly untouched. So the top end is controlled by physics, not by a Band-Aid. The bottom end is left alone. The frequency response above 5K is measurably flatter than most competing planars achieve, not by a little. Second bet, the DC coupling. This is what the DC Pro name actually means, and most people gloss over it. Standard amplifiers use an output capacitor. That capacitor creates a subtle high-pass filter at the very bottom. Phase shift, slightly rounded bass transients. It's always there. On most headphones you'd never know. On a headphone this revealing, you'd hear it immediately. So Final Audio removed it. DC coupled, straight to the driver. Sub-bass below 30 Hz hits the diaphragm with zero roll-off and zero phase compromise. The attack on a bass note has the same snap and precision as anything happening in the mid-range. That's the difference between the DC Pro and the standard D8000. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. 3 tracks. Different demands on the driver. Massive attack. Teardrop. 24-bit, 96K. The bass line, and this is below 60 Hz we're talking about, isn't just present, it's textured. You can hear the pitch separate from the decay, the room separate from the note. Fraser's vocal just floats above it with this effortless clarity that only happens when the driver isn't fighting itself down low. That's the DC coupling paying off in real time. Switch to something completely different. Hilary Hahn, playing solo Bach in DSD-64. One violin, one room, nowhere to hide. The reverb of the recording space sits behind the instrument as its own distinct layer, and up top, above 10K, The bow-on-string shimmer is there, fully intact, zero grain. The AFDS is killing resonance without killing the music. That's the hard part, and the D8000 DC Pro nails it. Bill Evans at the Vanguard, 192K. The crowd noise is spatially coherent, sitting behind the trio as its own layer. LaFaro's pizzicato is pinpointed independently. The stage doesn't flinch under dynamic swings, it just holds. The sonic character in one line: precision over warmth. This headphone isn't here to make you feel cozy. It's here to make you hear everything. Here's where the conversation gets uncomfortable, though. Everything you just heard me describe requires a system that can keep up. 60 ohms, 98 decibels per milliwatt. Easy enough to drive on paper. But the D8000 DC Pro doesn't care about paper specs. It cares about amplifier quality, output impedance, current delivery, linearity. A dedicated desktop amp with a low output impedance and sufficient current, that's the minimum. You need a DAC whose noise floor sits below what this headphone can resolve. A flagship DAP in balanced mode will technically power it, but you won't hear what it's capable of. The dynamic ceiling gets compressed and you're left wondering what the fuss was about. The ideal scenario: dedicated headphone desk, serious desktop chain, quiet room, late at night, or in a space with real acoustic control. That's where the 9.5 performance actually lives. Without that context, you're evaluating a different product. And about those cables, the D8000 DC Pro's analytical character and extended treble make cable selection a real variable, not a placebo exercise. A gold-silver alloy conductor is the most rational starting point. It moderates the upper band energy without narrowing the stage. Pure OCC silver works if your amplifier runs warm or dark. In a neutral or bright chain, silver's going to push the treble further than most recordings can handle. This is a headphone where cable metallurgy actually shows up in the listening. A $4,000 headphone on a $200 source is not a $4,000 system. The D8000 DC Pro will remind you of that every single time you press play. The obvious comparisons. Audeze LCD-5, roughly $4,500 as of May 2026. 90mm driver, phaser waveguide, acoustic chamber tuning instead of mechanical damping. Easier to drive at 14 ohms, lighter at 420 grams. Different philosophy entirely. Strong headphone with its own merits, but no AFDS, no DC-coupled path. HiFiMAN Susvara, about $6,000, also as of May 2026. Nanometer diaphragm, stealth magnets, and at 83 decibels per milliwatt, it's the hardest to drive in this tier by a wide margin. 2,000 more than the D8000 DC Pro, and you'll need substantially more amplifier to get there. Extraordinary when it's fed properly, but the total cost of ownership is a different conversation entirely. The D8000 DC Pro sits below both of them in price. It's the only one of the three with a proprietary mechanical damping system and a DC-coupled signal path working together. Dollar for dollar, the engineering case is hardest to argue against here. Sonic Core Audio Score, 9.5. The half point it doesn't get is honest. 523 grams is physics. Open back is a hard constraint. Not flaws, boundaries. They define who this headphone is for and where it belongs. If you've built a serious desktop chain and you want a headphone that rewards every upstream improvement you make, this belongs on your short list. It'll grow with your system in ways most headphones at this price simply won't. If you want something forgiving, something that sounds great no matter what's behind it, something you can throw on anywhere, look elsewhere. The D8000 DC Pro doesn't do forgiveness. It just tells you where you stand, every time you put it on, whether you're ready for that or not.